the model 1, we are going to talk about DevOps. In this, the first model is going to be Introduction to DevOps. So what is the agenda? What are the topics that we are going to cover in model 1, which is Introduction to DevOps? Okay, so in model 1, we are going to discuss about, first thing is what is DevOps, right? And then we are going to talk about the definition for DevOps, and then history of DevOps, and then we'll talk about life cycle of DevOps, and then we'll talk about some of the key terminology like continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous release, continuous deployment, and then continuous monitoring. So here we have specified continuous application monitoring. It's not only an application, it's more like how we can monitor end-to-end component in the infrastructure. Okay. Any questions on the agenda? Okay, so let's move on. So this is the first model is going to be a little bit of theory, and then from next model onwards we'll be having more of practical. Okay, so I will be focused more on implementation rather than theory. So that's why I used to have whiteboard in explaining the process, architecture, and the flow. Okay, and then I will show real-time practice where we can leverage the theory, okay, through practical. Perfect. So let's move on. So first thing is we need to understand how DevOps come into picture. So DevOps started around 2009. So there is a meeting held in Flickr. Okay, so they have 10 plus deployment per day. So they usually have a lot of features that is being developed every day, and they want to deliver that to the customer. For that, so say for example, every 1 hour they are developing a feature, and like they want to deliver that feature quickly once they have completed the feature, right? So in that case, so every hour they are developing a feature, so they need to deliver it, right? So when we are talking about deliver, they need to deploy the application into the infrastructure, meaning it is more like a deployment. So there are a lot of struggles and there are a lot of pains happening. So they want to solve the problem, how we can solve the continuous deployment. When we talk about 10 plus deployment, it's more like a continuous deployment, meaning once the feature is done, they want to deliver it. Once the feature is done, they want to deliver it to the customer, which will add value to the customer, right? So it's more like, continuous deployment need to happen. For that, as we discussed, there are 3 core teams, right? One is business team, one is development team, one is operation team. So when we talk about business team, business is driven by customer. So the field associate get the feedback from the customer, and that will be captured as a requirement, and that will be converted into business document, and that will go through leadership team for their budget allocation. Then it will come to the project team through senior manager, and then it will come to architect for the implementation architecture, and then it goes to tech lead who can implement the architecture, that is meaning the technical architecture that is provided by the architect, and then they will implement the feature, and then it will go to the QA, and then it will go to the automation team, and then it will be deployed. And then for the deployment, they need infrastructure team, because infrastructure team is responsible for managing the application, because they are the one who will create the infrastructure where we can deploy the application. So once it is deployed, it's responsibility of the operation team to make the application up and available for 24/7. And that involves the network component, the hardware, the software, network related components like router, switch, hub, whatever we have. Okay, so and again at the end, the customer, if anything, they will report to the customer care, and they have operation teams So these are all come under operation team. So there are two core teams. Okay, one is development team who is responsible for developing the feature, and the other one is operation team who is managing the infrastructure. So we need a collaboration between development and the operation. Now my question is where the problem will come into pictures, where we have problem. Any guess from anyone? Is it problem from development side or the problem will be from operation side?
I think one point is there should be proper handover to operations team, development team between development team and operations team. There should be proper handover, which might be missing at times.
Correct. So the key thing is the operation team should aware about what is being delivered by the development team for that particular release. Then only they can able to support the customer. Correct? What else? Guys, anything else? So guys, one thing I want to highlight here is, see, it should be more of interactive session, then only we will get a lot of stuff. So if it is going to be one-way communication, then it would be, more complex. Okay, so we should be more interactive, then only, we can discuss a lot and we can think about, next level. So please, be more interactive. So any other item? Okay.
Yeah, some store procedural changes or some updates on the database side, var files are missing, whatever you mentioned earlier. That's what dealt to the.
Okay. So the another key point is the development team is driven by business, correct? So the business team drives the development team, and the development team deliver whatever requirement they got from the business, correct? And their focus and they are driven by business team. Once they have developed and they have the application available, they need to deploy that application to the operation team, correct? So the problem is, who is responsible for the application scalability and availability? Who is the responsible person? Is it developer or is it operation team?
Operational team.
Yeah, so the primary is operation team, but we cannot say only operation team, but the primary is operation team, right? So the operation team is more like a, they won't take too many changes, right? So they want a stable build, they want a frozen environment. Okay, so what happens is the development team keep on developing, and if they deliver a package, if the package is not good, the finger point will come to the operation team. So the operation team is not happy with continuous delivery until or unless the application package is stable. Okay, guys are able to follow me? So how to build a good relationship between the development team and operation team to make things smoother, and how to make things, in a continuous automated process, and how to make the application being deployed to the production continuously, that will add value to the customers, right? So the key is we need to build a cooperation between development and the operation team. So this is missing in all the organization, right? So this is what the output that we got from the meeting at Flickr. That's how the term coined as DevOps. Dev is nothing but development, ops is nothing but operation. So collaboration and interaction between the development team and the operation team. So that's why I'm telling here. So we are in DevOps. So we should be more, see, the thumb rule of DevOps is collaboration, more interaction, So that's why I'm keep on telling, be more interactive, be more collaborative. Okay, so if you're going to work, if you're going to put DevOps in your resume after this program, you should be more collaborative and you should be more interactive. That would gain more productivity in the team. So that's why most of the companies are leveraging DevOps model. Okay, so please be more interactive and more collaborative. Okay, guys, any questions, any queries? What is DevOps? How the word DevOps coined?
So, so even now with DevOps in place, these two will be two different teams. Development and operations will be two different teams, except for the fact that there will be more interaction and collaboration between those two teams. Or is it that they are going to be only one team, and within one team only there will be the same guys will be acting as a developer and also the operations. Is that how it is going to work here, or there will be two different teams as it exists currently, but there will be more coordination and collaboration between them?
Yeah, so now the answer is, so let me put this. So usually what happens is when there is a new development starts, so usually we have business team, we have development team. There won't be any operation team involved in the meeting. Is that correct? If there is any new development or new activity comes into picture, right? So who are all the people who are involved in that? Developers?
Yeah, only business people. Yes.
So the problem is we are not having the communication and collaboration between the teams, because operations team should also aware of what's going on within the team for that particular operation, because they are the one who is going to manage and continuously support the application, correct? So with DevOps, what we are going to do is, starting from day one, so each and every team member will be available in all the meetings. Okay, so that each and everyone knows about the product, knows about the application flow, knows about the key features and key things that is happening in the product. Okay, so from day one onwards, it could be a business analyst, it could be a product owner, it could be a tech architect, it could be a tech lead, senior managers, or IT specialist, or system administrator, or customer care, whoever. So each and every team member will be participating in the DevOps model. So they will be participating in regular meeting, and they will be engaged and involved in each and every activity. Say for example, if developer is doing a development activity, so they will also know about what is the architecture that they are following for building the application. And the same way for infrastructure. If a system administrator or if a IT architect is building an infrastructure, the developer will aware about the system, will aware about the RAM size, will aware about the system architecture. And that way, when he is building an application, he can think of how my application is going to run in the infrastructure. The same way, the infrastructure people will aware of the application capability. Based on that, they can build the infrastructure. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Guys, we are in DevOps. Again, I'm telling, we should be more collaborative. Yeah. We should be more interactive. Okay, so that's how we can title ourselves as a DevOps engineer. Okay, and one thing is, in DevOps, right now we have people from different domain, from different knowledge. In future, if I say a person as a DevOps engineer, he's more like a end-to-end specialist. He knows about business, he knows about development, he knows about system architecture, system implementation, and he knows about IT architecture and IT implementation, and he also know how to support customers. Does that make sense? So in future, company will not recruit, say for example, software engineer, senior manager, or system administrator or IT architect, they will called as DevOps engineer. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if I say a person is a DevOps engineer, then he is more like a end-to-end specialist. But right now, if I go and look into a job profile for a DevOps engineer, it is more focused about the system side, not the software side. If you see, they will talk about, hey, you should be expertise in Jenkins, you should be expertise in Git, you should be expertise in Chef, Ansible, or you should have knowledge on scripting, you should have knowledge on system architecture, system infrastructure, and network infrastructure, all those stuff. But in the future, if I say a person as a DevOps engineer, he is more like a end-to-end SME. Okay, guys, are we clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first key point behind DevOps is cooperation, collaboration, and interaction between the developers and the we can say not developers, development team and operation team, because if I say developer, that will not include QA, architect, all those stuff. That's why I'm calling in general dev team. Okay, dev team and operation team. And the second key thumb rule behind DevOps is infrastructure as code. So we need to automate the infrastructure, which includes both system and the network. Okay, so we are building softwares using program, right? The same way we are going to build the infrastructure using program. That's why we are calling it as infrastructure as a code. And then the third thumb rule is continuous integration. So we should have a end-to-end continuous integration between different systems, starting from coding, and then how we are generating the build, and how we are going to deploy, and how we are going to monitor. So everything should be a continuous process. There should not be any manual interpretation in between. So everything should be a continuous automated process. Clear? And the third one is, right now in the current era, we have a wide availability of cloud and platform as a service. So we need to make use of cloud and PaaS, through which we can enable, more efficiency in our application and the infrastructure availability. So how we can utilize the cloud and PaaS technologies? Through DevOps, through which we can make efficient and scalable environment. Okay, so the thumb rule for DevOps is collaboration and interaction between developer and the operation team, meaning dev team and operation team, and make everything automated and have continuous automated process in place, and avail cloud and platform as a service technologies. Okay, so these are all the key component that turns from Agile into DevOps. Any questions?
You will be covering the cloud and platform as a service, how we use that to increase the efficiency of DevOps. So will you be covering as part of these sessions?
That is not part of our program, but that is very important. As a DevOps engineer, we need to understand how we can leverage cloud and platform service. But I will definitely talk about that, and I will give some case study on that, so that we can say we are covered everything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Now we are going to talk about the delivery challenges that we have. As I discussed earlier, there are three teams. Okay. So every team is driven and run towards customers, right? So everything is driven by customers. On top of that, we have different layers. One is line of business, which is the business team, and then development team, and then operation team. Okay, so these are the three layers: development team, and line of business, and then development team, and then operation team. So line of business, we have field associate who interacts directly with the customer, who gets the customer desires, what they needed, and what kind of innovation they are looking for. So everything will be captured from the customer by a sorry, by a field associate. Okay, so that will be given to the business analyst. So he or she will be responsible for converting that into the requirement document, and then it will go to the stakeholders or the leadership team. They allocate budget and uh, money for that particular implementation. Okay, then once it got allocated, that will come to the senior manager who will get that budget for the implementation. Okay, so the leadership team allocate the budget to the managers, meaning the senior managers, for the implementation. Okay, so he will take that project and he will try to implement that with the specified timeline. For that, he have a development team, he have a tech architect, he have a tech lead, he have a developers, and he have a QA, which includes manual and automation team. Okay, and then finally, once it is done and once the development is completed and it is signed off by both manual and automation team, it will go to the deployment. So when we are going for deployment, so we are going to deploy the application in the infrastructure. There we have operation teams, which includes system administrator, network administrator, and then system architect, network architect, and then we have customer care, operations support. So all those teams will come under the operations. Okay, so these are all the different teams which are part of the delivery. Okay, so what are the challenges we have with these teams? Okay, the first gap that is identified is between the line of business and the development team. What is that? If the business deck is not defined as per the customer desire, then it will end up with a non-viable product, right? So the requirement itself is not correct. Then we are going to deliver a buggy feature for the product. So we should have a well-defined business requirement from the line of business that need to be communicated to the business team, through which they need to create a clear, well-defined feature for that particular product. Okay, so if they fail to define a specific feature as per the customer need, then it will end up with a wrong feature, and that will not add value to the customer. Instead of that, sometimes it will create pain to the customer that will make the business goes down. Okay, and the second one is, once the development team build the application, they are going to deploy that into the infrastructure. So if the infrastructure team doesn't know about the application, it's very difficult for them to build infrastructure to make the application available and make it running for 24/7. So if they don't know about the application, it's very difficult for them to build an infrastructure. At the same time, if you think of customer support, if they don't know about the product feature, if someone from customer calls to the customer support, they don't know whether the feature is available or not and what would be the next step. So they are not in a position to support the customers, right? So it is very difficult for them to support. So these are all the two gaps that we have with the business model. One is the gap between the line of business and the development team, and the second one is the gap between the development team and the operation team. Clear? Any questions?
Clear now.
Any questions, any queries from anyone before we move on? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
No,
Thank
from
you.
me.
Okay, so now we understand what are all the different layers and different components, right? Now we need to discuss what are all the delivery challenges. When you are talking about delivery challenges, there are two things. One is technical challenges that we have across the team. One is scalability, how scalable the app is, so that we can make it available based on the customer demands. Okay, so that the availability of the app is 24/7. And then complexity, how complex the app is, and then time. So we need to have a provided time to build the feature and deploy the feature. Okay, and then pressures, because the whole stuff is driven by business. The business wants the feature to be delivered as soon as possible to the customers. So these are all the challenges that we have with the different teams. One is scalability, which leads to availability of the application, and then complexity, how complex the feature is, and then what is the timeline provided for that to build, and then pressures. So we need to complete the feature within the specified line. If not, it will lead to pressures, right? So these are all the different technical challenges that we have with the delivery model. And what are all the ways, what are all the trends through which the application is available to the customer? One is social, second one is location, third one is mobile. Social based, location based, and mobile based. These are the different technical trends through which the customer is in active to access the business. Social, local, and mobile. Clear? Any questions or any queries?
What is that? I didn't get technical trends, social, location, and mobile. What is that? Is it a term used? I mean, in general, like Solomo, or is it something that you had put in here in the PPT?
No, this is a generic term that is being used in the organization. When they are building application, they are targeting the customers, right? How customer is accessing the application? Through social network, through local or location, or through mobile. That's why we are calling what is the technical trends through which the customer is in active and accessing the application to leverage the business.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right now, if you take in general, customers are more active in social networks, right? And location based, locality. Third, mobility. So that is the technical trends through which we can reach the customer. Make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Any questions? Shall we move on?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So we talked about the gaps. We talked about the teams, and we talked about the flows, and we talked about the challenges, and we talked about the trends. Now let's understand the we have already understand the gaps. Now we'll talk about how we can reduce the gap. Okay, first one, design and deployment planning. So this is very important. How we are going to architect the feature and how we are going to fit that into the system, or how we can fit that into the product. So design. The second one is deployment. How we are going to deploy the app in such a way it is more scalable and available across the clock. So design and deployment planning is very important. So integrate and automate the deployment planning process across development and operation. So what we need to do is we need to make a integrated and automated process through which we can deploy the application. Okay, and the second one is we need to have a asset stores through which we can share the configuration that will be synchronized across the stores. Okay, so there should be a shared asset and configuration details that will be synchronized across the asset stores. So that would be key behind the design and deployment planning. Second one is environment setup, testing, deployment, and monitoring. So we need to leverage integrated tools for discovery and acceleration. Sorry, is that a question?
Yes, Kandaswamy, sorry. Can you shed light on that? Ensure asset and configuration details are shared and synchronized across asset stores. Can you explain it with an example?
Okay. So we have different environments, right? When we are building an application, so we are going to deploy the application in different environments. Initially, we start with dev environment, and then dit environment, and then sit environment, UAT environment, a pre-prod stage, and then prod, correct?
Correct.
So how we can effectively share the assets and configure, because the same application is going to run in different environments, correct? So how we can efficiently manage the asset in such a way we can share those assets and configuration, and that will be synchronized across the asset store for management perspective. Does that make sense?
No, still not clear. So we have so many environments like dev, SIT, UAT, and then production environment. And suppose we are developing a project or some changes going in. So
Okay, let's
with respect,
take a simple example. Okay, say for example, if you take a hard disk, okay, or let's talk in this way. Let's take a database server. Okay, so in database server, we have one instance. In that instance, we have different database. One is for dev, one is for QA, one is for prod, pre-prod stage. Correct? So when you're talking about sharing the assets and configuration in the sense, so sometimes what happens is there might be some data that can be shared between dev environment and dit environment and sit environment. I'm not talking about prod because prod is a prod, but in between development, dit and QA, we can share some of the core data. We don't need to replicate the data in such a way it will unnecessarily being saved across multiple times. Same copy of data will be saved multiple times, which will lead to duplication of data, correct? So that is called as...
In general, you will take the production data across all the lower environments, right?
So see, one thing is the bubbling should always go from dev, dit, QA, pre-prod, prod.
Yeah, I mean the change should go in and follow the several environment setups. But I'm saying the data that you are replicating between these environments has to be shared. That you will take through production data, right? So not you will take the production data and copy them in across all these databases. I mean, in your example, I'm just saying.
Yeah. So the origin is when you start, say for example, when you start us from the scratch. Okay. So the scratch point is the dev. Let's talk about you are doing a fresh development for a product. At that time, you don't have any prod customers, right?
yeah. Usually production data is not copied into all the environments. So I think it is copied into only one environment out of this dev, not into dev, but QA environment it will be copied, and UAT and all, they will have their own data.
See, I think
production data will not be copied into all the environments.
Correct. So we are talking about two different things. Okay, one is for testing purpose. Okay, what we usually do is sometimes we want to mimic the prod like data, right? So in that case, we will create some dummy prod like data from the prod environment, and we can replicate that into the dev QA for whatever environment. So that is more like to make a setup which will mimic as like a product, because our application cannot be tested directly in prod environment. So in order to make a template, a virtual prod data, in that case, what we'll do is we'll create a template and we'll create a data model which will looks as like prod, not the prod data, okay, as like prod.
Yeah.
But the vice versa, when you are building a new platform, at the time you may not have a prod environment, but you have a prod DB, all those stuff. But the process starts from dev environment, QA environment, and then pre-prod environment, and then you will have this data structure being pushed from this strategy, dev, date, QA, pre-prod, and then you will create a script. The script will execute in the prod environment, but only thing is you will not push the data. The data would be a different ETL process or different live transactional data that we got from customers. Okay, there are two different.
Yeah.
Guys, are we all clear or any confusions?
No, so far it is clear, but how can you correlate this? Ensure asset and configuration details are shared and synchronized across asset stores. Okay. This is what you mean by saying the data is moved from one environment to other. So asset stores are, you mean to say it is the environment, QA, Dev, SIT, UAT, those
Correct.
environments are.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay.
Clear?
Yeah. Just one more question, that Solomo, like social, local and mobile, even with DevOps, that will be the way customers access the application, right? Even if it is DevOps in whatever DevOps or Agile or waterfall model, the way the customers access will still be Solomo only, that like social, local and mobile. Will there be any difference here in the way the customers are will be accessing the application?
This is the current technical trend. We cannot say this is, this is not the trend for the future or in the past. We can say this is a technical trend for now.
Correct.
Maybe in the future.
So that is applicable equally for all the models like waterfall, Agile or whatsoever. Even DevOps also, that is applicable, right? There is no.
Technical trends will not change because the trend is more from the customers where they are active. That's how we are deriving.
Correct. But you mentioned that as a negative point in the previous slide, isn't it? You just mentioned that point, or is it mentioned under the category of delivery challenges?
No. Technical challenge, we talked about challenges related to scalability, complexity, time and pressure. This is
correct.
Technical trends, how we are reaching the customers. This is a keynote, not a challenge.
Not related. Okay. Then it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the next one is environment setup, testing, deployment and monitoring. So leverage integrated tools for discovery and accelerating the provisioning for test lab and production environments. So this is we already in a high level we discussed. So we need to have an integrated tool through which we can provision and discover and accelerate the test lab and production environments. Okay. So the one key component is we definitely have prod environment, we definitely have QA, whatever, but most of the organization may not have the test lab. So the test lab is playing a vital role because test lab contain prod-like environment and it's also contain prod environment data. So if you want to say, for example, if we get some prod issue, where I will test that prod issue. I cannot test a prod issue in dev environment or QA environment or DIT environment, correct? So I need an environment where I can have a live data to test it. So that is the test lab. Clear? And the test lab is more like, whatever tools, whatever infrastructure we have used for the prod environment, the same kind of setup we will be having in the test lab so that we can have the same type of infrastructure, same set of things, whatever we have in the production. Clear? Any questions?
So a quick question. So how the middleware admin will play a role in setting up the infrastructure in this DevOps cycle?
That will come under the dev team. See, dev team, when we talk about dev team, there are different dev teams, right? So we have UI team. There might be a team who is responsible for building the business logic, and there are teams who is responsible for building the services. That is middleware services. So all these
not the service. I mean the middleware admin, like the where you have to build the servers, web servers, app servers, database configurations, all these, where your application code will be deployed and hosted.
That
So
will
how? Yeah.
go ahead.
I mean, how his role is going to be, and how you will. I mean, during the course, how you will take through that. How your course is helpful to your middleware admin. I mean.
Okay. Okay. So that's what I told, I defined earlier. So when we talk about DevOps engineer, it's not business. It's not for developers. It's not about IT administrator. It's not about network administrator or not about middleware. If I say DevOps engineer, he is more generalized. Okay. So right now, maybe if you look into some of the job requirement, they may be right now focused more on infrastructure perspective, but it's not like that. But even when we call a DevOps engineer, he's more like a generalized engineer. He is an end-to-end expertise.
So he has to write his application code,
Yes.
analyze it, deploy it on servers, and take it
Yes.
to production. Is that what you
Correct.
mean?
Correct. It's more like an end-to-end.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay.
Got it.
Let's move on. And then improved test performance by replicating real world environments, faster testing and problem resolution. So we need to have improved test performance by replicating the prod environment. That's why we talked about test lab, and we can set up some pre-prod environment. That way we can quickly test and resolve the problem. Because so if you find a problem in production, the major problem that we have is we are not able to reproduce that in other environments. So the issue will be able to replicable only in the prod environment. So in order to replicate and in order to debug and in order to fix, we need to have a real world environment where we can improve the test performance by replicating the issue. Okay, so that is the important key. So test lab, which mimic like prod environment, and we need to have real world environment where we can replicate and test, debug, and retest that issue. Okay, so that would be part of environment setup, testing, deployment, and monitoring. Any questions? Yes, can you say yes or no?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, the last one is, I think this is the last one, yeah. The last one is issue identification and resolution management. I think you guys may have worked on any one of the issue identification resolution management tool like HP, EQM, or Jira, Rally. So how many of you heard or how many of you worked on this tool?
Yeah, I have experience
Yeah.
with Rally and Jira.
Yeah, so right now I
Yeah,
think
I've done Jira.
yeah, so right now most of the companies are migrating towards Rally, but we may used to with Jira or what do you say, EQM, so any one of these tools. But right now I think I don't know, you guys have worked on Rally, but most of the companies are now migrating towards Rally for DevOps. So this issue identification and resolution management tool is very important because once we got a ticket from customer, so we need to categorize whether it is a prod defect or dev defect. Once we have a ticket, but for a specific environment, then that need to be tracked as an end-to-end. So once the ticket is created, that will be assigned to the dev team, and then once the dev team is fixed, that need to be notified to QA, and QA is done, then it need to move to the UAT team, and once UAT is done, then it will be deployed to the production. Once it is deployed, that need to be notified back to the customer support. So we need to have a end-to-end visible tool through which we can track the tickets. Okay, so we need a centralized issue identification and resolution management tool. So this will resolve problems quicker by sharing problem and ticket information, and we need to have a tracking tools for production problem and application fixes remain synchronized. Once it is fixed, that need to be synchronized and updated through the tracking tool. Clear? Any questions? Next, we are going to talk about evolution of IT. In that, we are going to talk about different SDLC methodologies. So waterfall, agile, and DevOps. So we are going to talk about each and every SDLC model. So we are going to talk about its corresponding architecture and how the app is being deployed and packaged. And we are going to talk about the application infrastructure as well. Okay, so we'll talk about this in the next session because this is a huge topic. And before we end up today's session, I just want to hear your feedback. How we are going with the session. Do we need to improve any areas that you are interested? And we can talk about that.
Thanks for asking, Kandaswamy. Really appreciate that. But I think that so far the session is really good. Whatever you explained. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. So any other
I
feedback?
have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one question, or shall we make it tomorrow?
Yeah, we can go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah. So first thing is this DevOps. Is it a separate project management methodology other than it's like waterfall and agile, or is it something that is used in conjunction with waterfall methodology and agile methodology?
Actually, we can
So
say. Go ahead.
So we'll be using agile methodology for our changes, but DevOps is used in conjunction with that so that it keeps on continuous integration, continuous monitoring, and those things will happen. So how is that done?
Okay, so DevOps is a different SDLC model. So waterfall is different, agile is different, DevOps is different. Okay, but one thing I can highlight, it is an extension of agile.
Okay.
And it is the last mile of agile process.
Okay.
So
because in agile we'll have some sprints, like sprints for 2 weeks duration, with 2 weeks or 3 weeks duration. Whereas here in DevOps we are going to have releases almost every minute or whenever we need. It doesn't need to wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, isn't it? Is my understanding?
So, yeah, well, it's very simple and straightforward. Okay, so in agile we are following business agility. So business and development team is actively involved in the sprint planning, sprint grooming, sprint demo, sprint retrospective, and sprint stand-ups. Correct? And story reviews and story groomings, all those stuff. With DevOps, we are going to have 3 different teams going to work collaboratively. So we are going to have business agility as well as IT agility. Business agility is nothing but between business and development. IT agility is nothing but between development team and IT. So that's why we are calling DevOps is combination of business agility plus IT agility. Very simple. In Agile, we follow business agility. In DevOps, we are going to follow business agility. On top of that, we are going to follow IT agility. That's it.
Okay. And is there any certification for this DevOps?
Yeah, so I will talk about more in detail. It's a little bit, it requires some more time to talk.
Okay,
so we'll talk about, definitely we'll talk about that. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Any questions? So any other feedbacks from others? So guys, see, you are the, real, so you are being driven by, this program is more about you. So you are the driving force. Okay. So you need to tell me your feedbacks. Okay, hey Kandaswamy, here we need to improve. These are the areas where we need to improve, because this is your first session, right? So maybe you can take 1 or 2 session or 3 session. Give me your feedback and the areas where we need to improve. So that way, we can be more productive, and we need to utilize, time more efficiently, and it should be more productive, right? So please give your valuable feedback. That is going to help all of us. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one more thing is, from my side, I want you to ask more question and more interactive and more collaborative. Okay, so that will help, kind of brainstorming more. Clear?
Sure. Yeah.
Any other questions
Okay.
from today's? In tomorrow's session, the agenda would be, we'll be covering the rest of the topics we have with unit 1. So we'll talk about the evolution of IT, and then we'll talk about the state of Agile. We'll talk about transition from Agile to DevOps, and we'll talk about the values between Agile and Dev. And then we'll talk about what is DevOps characteristics, and we'll talk about the strategies, and we'll talk about different stories that we have in DevOps. And then we'll talk about what is DevOps and how to adopt DevOps and what are all the factors that is driving the DevOps. And then we'll talk about the benefits. And then finally, we'll talk about the comparison between DevOps and Agile. And then we'll talk about the pipeline and how we can adapt DevOps. And then finally, we'll talk about the tools for implementing DevOps. With that, we will be completing this program. Sorry, not this program, this particular model 1. So tomorrow,
This time you are going to share this PPT.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is, tomorrow when I come back, the first thing is so I will create a group email for us, so that I will keep on sharing all the resources to all of you, because I don't have your mail IDs, so I cannot send it today. So tomorrow when we come back, the first thing is we'll create a group email, and then I will send this PPT, and then we'll get started with the other topic. Clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions before we wind up today's session?
I just typed in my email ID in the group chat.
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll create that, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good day. Bye.